United Nations has appealed after, and there's been a condemnation after the United States extended its suspension of visas for nearly all those who hold a Palestinian passport. This after revoking approval for President Mahmoud Abbas to appear at the UN General Assembly later this month. The UN General Assembly, where France and Saudi Arabia are spearheading an effort by some nations to recognize a Palestinian state in a bid to bring to a head attempts to try to get the guns to go silent in Gaza. Well, with us, she was a U.S. State Department spokesperson in Arabic, but resigned over the handling of the war in Gaza by the predecessor of Donald Trump, Joe Biden. Hala Rharrit, thank you for being with us here on France 24.
Thank you so much for having me.
First, there was this news that Mahmoud Abbas would not have a visa, and now this. What do you make of it?
Well, it makes it abundantly clear for anyone that still had any doubts that this war is not against Hamas, but it's against the Palestinian people. As a whole, as an entire entity, as an entire nation. I want to remind your audiences that the Palestinian Authority that Mahmoud Abbas is heading are the party that committed to non-violence. They are the party that has already recognized the state of Israel, that has basically given Israel most everything that they wanted, and thus they got a lot of criticism actually amongst Palestinians and in the entire region. So when even they are denied a visa, even they are being suppressed, the message is no matter what Palestinians do, they're going to be damned. Damned if they're violent, damned if they support nonviolent resistance. It is really a calamity. And it also shows that the United States is, unfortunately, and I say this and it pains me as a former diplomat, is doing what Netanyahu wants them to do. My government is no longer working on behalf of U.S. national security, U.S. interests, but we've merely become pawns of the Israeli government and are executing what their desires are, not what ours are.
Is that ideology on the part of Donald Trump or indifference?
I think it's a lot of a lot. I think it's ideology in part, but to be quite frank, and I say this as an 18-year veteran of the State Department, I think it's corruption. And the reason why I resigned under the Biden administration and the reason why this continues to be an issue is because special interests have a grip on the United States government. It is not what diplomats, our intelligence community, are reporting to the government officials. It is what special interests are forcing government officials to do. And that is a calamity. That is not democratic. Again, that is not working on behalf of the American people. That's working on behalf of the arms industry, on behalf of the Israeli lobby. And as fundamentally for me as a diplomat, it was against our interests as the United States. And that's why I also resigned. And we see that continuing under the Trump administration. And it's up to the people to say enough is enough. This is wrong.
Those special interests, are you surprised that they're so front and center? They've been around for decades.
They've been around for decades, and it's clear that it's beyond party lines. But for your audience, especially an international audience, I want to explain to them that the role of special interest in America is not specific to this issue. The same reason why we continue to have shootings in high schools year after year after year, and we're not able to get gun reform laws in the United States that are protecting American children in their schools. I mean, we just had a shooting last week. Is the same interest why we keep on giving Israel weapons after weapons after weapons in violation of U.S. laws, again, U.S. laws, and in violation of international law and humanitarian law, because there's profit. There's profit in gun sales, there's profit in war, and our politicians are adherent to their campaign contributions, whether those are from the national gun lobby or from the weapons industry or from, again, the Israeli lobby. But at this point, it's become so unchecked that it's led to such disastrous, catastrophic situation in Gaza that really it's unimaginable. when we're seeing famine has been officially declared. It's gone beyond what any one of us can tolerate. And I'm hoping that doing more and more interviews is going to awaken people, because at this point, what can we do when our governments are no longer representative of the people? They're representative of special interests strictly.
Hala Rharrit, you mentioned the gun lobby, but perhaps there's more. Please stay with us, because we're going to show a report. Donald Trump, his plan to turn Gaza into the Riviera had gone quiet after much lambasting. Now, though, it's back with a vengeance, it seems. The Washington Post reports the proposal includes financial incentives for Palestinians to leave. Oliver Farry has more.
Skyscrapers as far as the eye can see. This is what Donald Trump's vision for the so-called Gaza Riviera looks like. This illustration figures in a 38-page prospectus seen by the Washington Post. The proposal, called the Gaza Reconstruction Economic Acceleration and Transformation Trust, states the Gaza Strip would be placed under U.S. administration for 10 years, while it is transformed into a tourism and technology hub. Also envisaged is the voluntary departure of the 2 million inhabitants to other countries, or to restricted secure zones inside the enclave during reconstruction. To encourage the departures, the plan would offer Gazans $5,000 in cash and subsidies for 4 years of rent and 1 year of food. Property owners would be given a digital token which they can use to finance a new life elsewhere, or redeem for an apartment in the 6 to 8 new so-called AI-powered smart cities to be built in Gaza. The Washington Post says the plan was laid out by Israelis who are behind the self-styled Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which has been entrusted by Israel with distributing food aid, but which has been subject to fierce criticism by human rights groups. The US president has grasped the opportunity to apply an area he knows best, property development, to Gaza, with the help of his son-in-law Jared Kushner, who attended a meeting on the future of Gaza Trump hosted at the White House last Wednesday. Though the Israeli far right has welcomed the plan, Trump's glittering vision of a pacified Gaza has been rejected by many Western governments and condemned by human rights groups, who say it will facilitate the ethnic cleansing of Gaza.
And we're in the company of former U.S. diplomat Hala Rharrit. Hala, where does this leave career diplomats when this kind of idea is sprung?
It leaves them with the decision: are you going to continue to be complicit in crimes against humanity? Are you going to try to fight as much as you can from within until you either hit a wall or you have to resign? I hit that wall, and I chose to resign under the Biden administration because crimes against humanity and violations of U.S. laws were already being committed under my watchful eye, and I refused. It is up to every single one of us to stand up against injustice. I think that the thought is, if we just keep our heads down, then perhaps it won't affect us. But when we allow injustice, it just continues to grow. And we're seeing that. We're seeing that right before our eyes, and they're not even hiding it. You know, during the Iraq War, the US administration, the Bush administration, tried to sell the lie of weapons of mass destruction. They were trying to at least convince that it was not strictly about oil profits or getting rid of Saddam Hussein to take Iraqi oil. There was this semblance of trying to convince the American people and the international community. There's not even a semblance anymore that this is not strictly for profit. This is tantamount to an absolute crime against humanity. It is ethnic cleansing. And what the Israeli government is doing is they're starving the Palestinians to the point where they will try to leave to save themselves, to save their children. There's so much disease rampant in the Gaza Strip now. So they're making it so intolerable, so unlivable. Again, a violation of international humanitarian law, a violation of the Geneva Conventions on collective punishment, that they're going to try to forcibly, or quote unquote, as they say, voluntarily force people to leave in order for them to make profit. It's completely illegal. If we allow this to happen in Gaza, it will come to each one of us. It will come to each one of us.
And so for the rest of the world, is diplomacy dead? Or can diplomatic efforts, be they from the Arab world or from Europe, do anything at this point?
Diplomacy will never be dead. I am at heart and will always be a diplomat. And for me, that is the only solution to conflict. It is very, very rare in my book that military solutions actually work because they generally tend to aggravate the situation even more. But it is clear to me that diplomacy now is only used as a cover. There is no diplomacy being actually used. If we allowed ourselves to use diplomacy, absolutely, negotiations could bring this to an end. I mean, I was speaking to Israeli negotiators when I was still a diplomat, even after I resigned, that were actually sincere in trying to find a diplomatic solution. But our leaders are not seeking diplomacy. They are not using diplomacy. They are only using it as a front for military intervention.
Just
but
very
that is
briefly
why
on
we,
that
the
on
people,
that
yes.
point, will recognizing a Palestinian state by traditional allies like France, the UK, Australia, and others, will that make a difference or not?
It's absolutely a positive step, but it can't just be in words. It has to be in action. It needs to be backed up with something tangible, still diplomatic, but tangible, such as an arms embargo, such as an isolation diplomatically, economically of the state of Israel, as long as they're committing war crimes. We cannot allow, as an international community, for any country, no matter who that country is, we cannot allow them to violate international law, commit war crimes, and we allow that to happen. That's not how the international order is supposed to work. So we need to use the diplomatic leverages that we have, but we can't just recognize the state of Israel and at the same time keep selling arms or importing arms from, recognize the state of Palestine, but at the same time not impose an arms embargo in Israel. You have to have both. You have to have pressure on Israel with the recognition of the Palestinian state. And also time is of the essence at this point. What's going to be left of Gaza? What's going to be left of Gazans by the time that these recognitions come about? It needs to be absolute isolation now to choke the system that is allowing these crimes to continue under all of our watchful eyes.
Hala Rharrit, many thanks for joining us here on France 24.